defense only gave up 10 points going into the fourth quarter, even though they gave up some long drives and some yards. What did the film show? Were you pretty pleased with that effort until the end here?
That's a great two-word phrase. Fairly pleased. I think we played really hard, extremely hard. Didn't always fit properly, every single time, but a lot of guys made up for it with great effort. We knew going into it, getting Hundley on the ground would be a key to the game, and we did that for the most part. That guy, you got to give him credit. He's an unbelievably heavy runner, tough runner, durable guy, and until he punched in and right before halftime, did a great job of exactly that, a field position game, turnover game. Turnovers were huge again, but a lot of stuff to work on when you look at the film.
We've just started there for those on the phone, so we'll get to you in a second. Did you have a question, Matt?
After watching the film, was there anything positive that you didn't notice right away that kind of stood out to you on either side of the ball?
Was there anything positive that we didn't notice? Gosh, that's a great question. I thought during the game and bared out, our punt team and our kickoff team did a great job. Kenny Bassett was phenomenal. Kenny and Charles Nelson have been really, really good for us in terms of covering kicks, and we knew that getting to Ishmael Adams would be key, and I think their biggest return was a 16-yard return. That was huge, including the opening kickoff of the game, coupled with Matt Wogan, who did a great job of getting the ball in the end zone. He was 7 out of 7 as far as kicking the ball into the end zone. He ended up being our special teams player of the game, coupled with Ian Wheeler, Kenny Bassett, Tyree Robinson did some really good things in the coverage game as well. I can just go through that real quickly too. Our special teams scout of the week was Tyler Stinson. And then on our defensive player of the game was Tony Washington. The defensive scout, or actually scouts plural, was the entire offensive line. On offense, Farrow ended up being our player of the game. And then the entire scout D line were the scouts of the week.
Gary Horowitz, I know you have a question. Do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Mark. How
Hey,
you
Gary.
doing? I might have missed this, Mark, and I apologize if I did. And I know you're not, every game is just as important as the next in terms of statement-type games. But do you like just this, after looking at the film, just the response, the way the team came back, the way they practiced, and just overall how they played in such an important game?
Yeah, I really liked their response starting with last Friday. Right after the Arizona game, our guys were back at it in as I call it, in fix it mode and get improvement mode. Coaches and players in we mode, getting better, and they had a great week of practice. And the biggest thing that they took into the UCLA game was just, we talk all the time about earned confidence, true confidence, because you've done it before in training, and you trust it. And some of our young guys just didn't, and some of our older guys too, just didn't fully trust it, and that shows up in missed tackles on the perimeter. Maybe a guy just takes one false step and doesn't fit his gap correctly, doesn't run through the tackle instead of coming with even feet or slowing down. And we did a better job of that, not a perfect job of that by any stretch. And that's an encouraging thing too, that we can get a win on the road against a very, very good team and still have a ton to work on.
And does this win moving forward? I know Washington's a real good team as well. Should this help a lot in this game, or is that just to be determined?
Well, hopefully, absolutely. Hopefully you build on, again, win or loss, hopefully you build on the things you need to sustain and work on the things that you have to improve upon. But, certainly I think, again, for a lot of young guys, we played a ton of guys in this game. Stetson Bear got his first action on the O-line. We had a weird little sequence there where Jake Fisher was unavailable. Tyrell had his helmet kind of torn off, and then Stetson goes in and we scored the touchdown right over the top of him. So it was a pretty cool deal there. And just a bunch of Danny Mattingly, I think, as I said earlier, got his first action. A guy that is battling to just kind of durability wise, and has done a nice job that way of just staying as positive as possible. But I think hopefully it gives those guys just the confidence of being able to do it on a big stage. And the other thing too, if didn't mention earlier, our fans were unbelievable down there. That's the biggest. I've been to the Rose Bowl a bunch of times as a playing UCLA, not for the Rose Bowl, all caps, but unbelievable crowd. The representation down there was awesome.
Mark Farrow, I think, had career highs in catches, yards, and also single catch for long. When he has that type of impact, how does that impact your play calling and what you can do personnel grouping wise?
It's big. He did even a bigger. He had even a bigger impact on the game as a blocker. And that was one thing. We put a ton of stuff on his plate this week, and he's been practicing really well, and did it in every phase at the line of scrimmage. In space on the perimeter. He did some dirty work that got those guys some big yards, all the backs and Marcus included. And then, had a great game with the ball in his hands too. So sometimes that's going to happen, as far as with the ball in his hands, but we need him to be that guy all the time. And he's done a lot of really good things thus far.
Jason and Chantel, I know you've been excluded the last couple of weeks. Do either of you have a question?
Yeah, I do, if I can jump in. Mark, this is kind of random, but the Pac-12 road teams have won the overwhelming majority of games this season. It's something like 16-4, and that's really, really not true across other conferences. The home team normally wins, obviously, but I was wondering, is there something about Pac-12 teams that make them better playing on the road? Do your fans travel better? Are you guys just tougher? What goes into that? Why are you guys so good on the road?
I wish I could give you some smart answer, but I'm guessing it's just kind of an anomaly this year as far as how the scheduling has just played out. That's a great question. Hopefully that's not the case in Autzen Stadium next week.
Jason?
Well, I know you usually address this Tuesday, Mark, but can we get some early thoughts on Washington because it is such a rivalry game, and the Ducks, of course, as you well know, probably have won 10 in a row in this series. Just some early thoughts on what you know about Washington.
Well, just watching, their defense, they create a ton of pressure on the quarterback. They've had a million takeaways defensively, and they're very versatile on defense. I haven't watched any of their offense or special teams yet. I'll do that later on in the week, but very talented. It's kind of a lot of the same personnel that they had last year. A bunch of speed on all levels up front. Their second level guys and their secondary.
It looks like a premier defense, Mark. I mean, they went blow for blow with Stanford there for a while. Of course, they gave up a lot of yards and points to Eastern Washington, but that was a non-league. What do you see with that defense? Is it just does it start with their D line essentially?
What was the word? I couldn't hear what you said. What kind of defense up at the very beginning of that? Did you guys hear what he said?
It looks to me like a premier.
Oh, premier.
Defense.
Okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't understand.
Especially after the Eastern Washington game, I think that was non-league, which sometimes non-league games are with an asterisk next to them. But I mean, they went blow for blow with Stanford. Does it start with their D line?
Definitely. I think again, all three levels of their defense, they have tremendous athleticism and speed. It's the most versatile. Coming into this game, UCLA was the most versatile team we played against schematically on defense, and now they'll be trumped by Washington in terms of how much scheme, just in terms of fronts, pressures, and coverages that they play it's the most to date that we've faced. So that's again a identification challenge, communication challenge, and then just trust in your execution.
Yeah. Thank you,
Coach. Yesterday, after Marcus's fumble recovery touchdown, there was a shot of Jim Mora on the sideline having I guess we'll call it a heated exchange with his DC after that play. Have you ever seen anything like that before where it gets so heated, even on the same sideline that you've been on?
I saw the Buddy Ryan, Kevin Gilbride. Was that Kevin Gilbride back in the day? It's again, I think probably a little bit more is being made out of that than is there. Those guys, I think they've known each other for, I don't know, I would guess 20-some years, maybe more than that, going back a long, long time. They're both very, very passionate guys that care a lot about what they do. and sometimes exchanges are heated, some seen, some unseen, and I know they'll just move forward. And that was planned, by the way. That was not a fumble.
John.
Coach, you mentioned Tony Washington. For him to come back after taking some of that unfair criticism after Arizona, what does it say about his type of character to have the game he had against UCLA yesterday?
It was big. I think some of that criticism was fair. And T-Dub is a proud guy, a proud teammate, and wanted to go out there and play for his guys. And I think that was one of the things that was really good to see, is just how we never want to be good at losing, but how it brought us together. And that was really good to see, and I think played out this weekend.
Go, Ryan.
Thank you. Just back to Farrell real quick. I mean, that was the first really big receiving game for a tight end this year. Did you guys have to use them even more in protection when the offensive line was banged up a little bit? And do you see that as something moving forward where those guys can catch more balls?
It really depends on a couple factors, kind of game planning wise, how they fit each week based on a lot of factors, our relative health, our plan, the opponent's strengths or perceived strengths and weaknesses contribute to that, and that'll that's a pick 'em type of deal.
Any other questions on the phone?
I have one quick one. Again, I apologize if it's already asked regarding Jake Fisher. I know he played really well, helped solidify the line. Mark, did he make that much of a difference, or was it more collectively everyone coming together?
I think, again, I said yesterday, it was good to have him back in there for sure, but I definitely think it was the collective effort of all those guys. They again, starting last week, had a great week of training. Our Tuesday and Wednesday periods, our training sessions, we do a period of kind of good on good, and they were highly competitive, very physical, and the O-line especially practiced at a much better level than they ever have before. And now the challenge is to make that the new norm. That's the new standard, and going forward with a different challenge this week, and a more scheme, couple guys with a tremendous speed on the edge as far as pass rushers, that will have to even get better.
Whether it was the O-line or Tony, it seemed like some guys were aware of some of the criticisms being leveled against them externally over the last week or two. Did you say anything to get them to sort of funnel that the right way, or could you just count on them to handle that correctly themselves?
Well, the whole part about that is the same people that were criticizing are the same people this week that says, they're the 85 Bears, and which the truth again is somewhere in between. But we've got to go back just after a win, just after a loss, is improve in every phase, on and off the field, and certainly those guys, whether it's the internet or whatever, those guys are impacted by that, and the key is to believe in our voice and our one voice as a team, them individually, staying focused on the voices that really matter, their coaches and their teammates, and moving on.
Anything else out there?
Mark, do you remember where you were when Kenny Wheaton made the pick? Were you playing in a ball game that day, or did you catch it?
I was probably throwing a pick simultaneously. That would be the right year. I was probably throwing a pick. I don't remember exactly. I remember, obviously the famous Jerry Allen call, hearing that later that day, I think. But I don't know exactly where I was. Sorry. I probably made the tackle, though, when I threw the pick. Accidentally.
Heard you guys had a chance to stop by In-N-Out on your way back to the airport after the game. Was that more of a reward for the guys? And I can only imagine what that's like, trying to feed 60, 65 players, all the coaches at once in such a short period of time, and what the stress is on everybody at In-N-Out working.
Well, that was supposed to stay in-house. Steve Greatwood's been fired, which that's not true. But Kyle West, our director of football operations, deserves every ounce of credit for making that happen. He's a stud. I should give him more credit more often. Unbelievable guy.
That's spelled Wiest.
More recruiting trips to Medford then?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything
For
else?
some guys.